is 7:43. I'll call to order. Pursuant to due call and notice thereof, the regular meeting of the Economic Development Authority of the City of Crystal, EDA, was going to be held at 7:43. So, roll call, please. All right.
Thank you. Commissioner Kaiser?
Here.
Commissioner LaRoche?
Here.
Commissioner Parsons? Commissioner Adams?
Here.
Commissioner Banks?
Here.
Commissioner Budiszewski?
Here.
Commissioner Cummings?
Here.
We have a quorum.
All righty. And let's see. So first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the October 18th, 2022 regular meeting. Commissioner LaRose.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
All right.
I will second.
Commissioner Kaiser. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. The ayes have it. All right. I'll turn it over to you, John, right here for item number 4.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. This is, we have 2 items tonight related to this item, but just one slide. So that's a win right there. This is about the 5240 Apartments project, 5240 West Broadway. This is that 1 3/4 acre vacant site just northwest of Big Louie's, again on West Broadway, just north of the railroad tracks. It'll be a 58-unit, 4-story apartment building with all units affordable at or below incomes of 60% of area median income. And the upper right-hand corner is the landscape plan from the site plan package that was approved by the City Council on September 6th. And the illustration at the bottom is a kind of a colorized view of what the building would look like from West Broadway. So this is just a refresher for you, a reminder how the site and the building will look, and also for the public in case they hadn't heard about this development before. The proposed TIF district that is before you tonight would simply include those 4 parcels that comprise that 1 3/4 acre site of the apartment building itself. And those are the darker blue in the center of the screen. So here are the kind of the nuts and bolts of the proposed tax increment financing district. It is an affordable housing district. It has a maximum duration of 26 years. The present value of the estimated increment over those 26 years, and the increment is the additional property taxes, the new property taxes that result from the development, is just over $1.3 million. That's present value of 26 years of increment. The present value of increment over the first 10 years is $389,000. And the reason we bring that up is that per the EDA's direction from June of 2021, the TIF assistance for this development will not exceed 10 years duration, 10 years of TIF. And so that's why that $389,000 number is important. It's only an estimate, but at this point, that is what we believe the present value of the net increment will be over those first 10 years. A couple points on that.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you. That's a present value for an annual amount, or is that for the?
That's over the
duration?
life of the district.
Okay.
Discounted, assuming a 3% inflation rate over those years.
Copy that. Thank you.
So, there is a table in here if you want to actually see the calculations, but that's kind of like the bottom line of how much TIF the district generates over those 2 time periods that could be used for financing things today. So, the developer's financials are still being reviewed by Ellers to determine how much assistance they need, recognizing that the EDA's previous direction was only up to those 10 years. So it may end up being less, probably not, but it won't be more than 10 years. And the recommended assistance amount and the term will be presented to the EDA and City Council for consideration at a later date. So that's not what tonight is about. Tonight is simply about creation of the TIF district. So I would think of it as the first step in the first step, because the City Council has to hold a public hearing also on the creation of the district before they vote to actually create the district, and that will be on December 6th. Subsequent to all of this, there'll be a development agreement with the specific terms of assistance for this development, that will be a whole separate vote by the EDA and the council. So what happens, let's assume that the developer does get 10 years of TIF assistance. What happens after then? That's the bottom bullet. The city may decertify the district after the obligation to the developer is satisfied, or at that time, the city could choose to let the district continue to run and use that increment for other qualifying housing activities. For example, our home improvement grant program for lower moderate income households, which we have now financed with another housing, an older housing district, similar situation. So that is just one example of the type of qualifying housing activity you could use it for. Or you could use it for another housing development at that point in the future. Or you could decertify the district at that point, and then each respective taxing jurisdiction would then begin to collect that additional tax revenue that the development is generating. So that is a decision that happens after this hypothetical year 10, when the developer's obligation has been satisfied. Any questions on, there's a lot of info there, any questions before I move on?
I just had a question, John, about when you mentioned the home improvement loans. Was that the one that was running out of funds in a few years?
Yes.
So
Yep.
this could be a way to bridge that potentially.
Yes, if, potentially. There are a lot of unknowns between now and 2035, basically. And the current TIF fund balance isn't going to be enough to get us to there, but we think it gets us to 2028. So we might have to figure out some bridge in between. But I guess it's way too early to tell, but I just brought that up as an example of the type of affordable housing activities that you can use these funds for.
Okay, thank you.
So this is that table I promised you, and I'm going to move right past it unless somebody really wants to dig into it. This wasn't your packet, but it is basically the cash flow statement for the 26-year life of the district. So tonight, the requested action for this agenda item, number 4 on the agenda, is a motion to adopt the resolution establishing tax increment financing district number 5. As I mentioned, if this is adopted, the City Council will consider the same action at its December 6th meeting following the advertised public hearing. And then later, the development agreement with a specific amount and term of developer assistance will be presented to you in the Council for consideration later this year or early 2023. And construction is anticipated to begin in spring of 2023 and be completed approximately 1 year later.
Question? Brennan?
Good.
Looking at some of the costs here, I know how complex these are, and I was kind of confused in a couple areas. Number one, thanks for not going into that chart. That was very difficult.
Reading that one?
Yeah. I'll move off.
The question I had, I can't seem to find it at the moment, but there was a number, there was a 10% number that was described as interest, and in the next line, it was described as administrative fees, and there was a different interest number there, so it kind of helped add to the confusion, so to speak. Can you talk about what the expense is from a citizen perspective?
Sure. That's a good question, and the 10% administration, that's simply an assumption baked into these estimates or forecasts that is the maximum that the state allows us to spend on administration. It doesn't mean that we are going to spend that much on administration or that we're paying somebody else that much for administration. It's simply the assumption that's baked into these forecasts and estimates, because that's the maximum the state allows. And I failed to introduce Keith Dahl from Ellers, who'd be happy to answer questions, and I'm actually going to ask him to answer that question because I think he can do so better than I can.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, President, Commissioners. Keith Dahl, Municipal Advisor at Ellers, the city's financial consultant and EDA's financial consultant. There's two components to the question that you asked about the 10% administration. I'm going to answer both. Just make sure I cover the question because it could be two separate answers ultimately. In the TIF cash flow that was presented on the slide, the EDA is able to take 10% of the annual tax increment that is generated by this development and use those costs for ongoing administration purposes and reporting and auditing of the TIF district throughout its life. So you get 10% of the annually generated tax increment. If you don't use all of that for administration purposes, that ultimately gets captured as pooling, and you would be able to use that on other affordable housing projects throughout the city, like the loan program that was currently being discussed. After the assistance to the developer is paid off, if that's year 10 or sooner, just depending upon where values, assessed values go and where the city's tax rate goes, it could be potentially paid off sooner, and then the EDA would be capturing 100% of the tax increment after that obligation is repaid annually to support the other affordable housing projects throughout the city. The other part of this question could be related to the budget that was in the TIF plan. There's a 10% administrative line item that's called out in the budget, and then there's also an interest line item that's called out in the budget. The budget in the TIF plan is just a budget. Statutorily, we're required to present the TIF plan in maximums, even though we have no intention that this district is going to meet those expenses that are laid out in the budget. The only obligation that is currently being contemplated within this TIF district is the potential 10-year assistance that we'd be providing to the developer. The city's not going to be paying for any infrastructure costs. All they're agreeing to is provide this TIF note ultimately to the developer. But the action in front of you tonight isn't approval of the agreement, approval of the assistance. It's approval of the TIF plan, which is essentially the mechanism to be able to provide assistance. It's not the agreement yet to provide assistance.
Okay, I think you got part of it. I think it's page 7, where it talks uses of funds. And we got land and building acquisition, site improvement, affordable housing, utilities, other qualifying improvements, administrative costs up to 10%. So that 10% is dollar for dollar, matches the source of revenue in the prior page. Excuse me. But there's a line of interest that's at $754,439. So I think you said that was the budgeted amount. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So it's 10% plus whatever percent to the 754 is, and that's how we would classify how much this costs for our citizens. Is that correct? Or is that
No.
misnomer?
No. The budget that you're looking at is presented over 26 years. The assistance that potentially could be provided to the developer is only over 10. So that budget on page 7 is showing the maximum, the statutory maximum length of the TIF district and what the hypothetical budget would be. And it's presented up exceeding the budgeted amount. You would have to go through reapproval of the TIF plan, the same process that we're going through right now, to either update that budget or reduce the budget however you see fit.
So there's a little bit more latitude in that budget number.
Correct. And that's why we incorporate annual inflation into generating the tax increment that goes into the TIF plan to provide future cushion and flexibility. Should something else arise that you want to use the tax increment that you generated for some other affordable housing project, not specific to the project that's being proposed inside of the TIF district.
Okay. So the maximum interest in the budget is
$754,000.
754,000, which is, crap, 32%, and the 10% is, but the 10% is for sure, that's going to be withheld. And it will either be the pooling, or it will subsidize any costs we have as a EDA.
Correct.
Correct, okay. The only other comment I had on the preparation was that, I can't remember exactly where it was, but it talked about how, because we moved forward to this stage, that we really can't move back. You know, that we can't not do a TIF district. You're looking at me like I'm crazy.
No, can you tell me where that is? It sounded like you.
No, not at the moment.
I mean, you can always decertify a district, it's just you might have this developer obligation sitting out there. So really, you would only decertify it after the obligation's satisfied.
Right,
We're
right.
not there yet anyway, but.
The way I interpreted it, I'm not seeing it at the moment. I hope I underlined it. The way I understood it was that because we moved on, the developer assumed that we were going to move forward.
I think I see what you're getting at.
But when we talked about it, we talked about that we didn't have to necessarily move forward, but the way it was presented here was that we did. Correct?
Yeah, Keith can correct me if I'm wrong, but the developer and the tax credit award was made based on the 2021 EDA resolution of support for up to 10 years of TIF. The developer submitted their application, they got the tax credit award. They've been proceeding on that, but that resolution was clear that this is not a commitment. Until the EDA approve and the council approve the TIF plan and subsequently approve an actual specific development agreement with the developer, that was not an obligation. So I think, again, I'm not sure exactly.
I'm not sure exactly either where.
It is, but it may have been getting to the fact that the developer is saying, if we don't get the TIF money, we can't proceed with the project.
Right.
But I don't think that translates into some kind of obligation on the part of the EDA or the city to approve the TIF district, because you said back in that resolution in 2021, very specifically, that this is not a commitment to provide TIF because we have to go through the whole TIF plan process, and we weren't there yet.
Right, yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we remembered that was what it was, because you said exactly what I remember. So, thank you. I don't know if I have any more questions or not. You can go on to somebody else.
All right. Anybody else have questions? Nancy?
No.
John?
Just a comment, so if we don't go forward with the TIF district, this basically ends up being an empty lot for the next 30 years.
I don't know how long, but I think it's reasonable to say the project won't proceed because they won't get their tax credits, which is the bulk of the financing.
How long has it been empty? Do you know, John?
2007-ish, so about 15 years. I frankly am surprised that we didn't have a light industrial user grab that lot and build something over those 15 years. It was zoned for it, we reached out to people. I don't know why it didn't get built on by now, but it didn't. So, here we are. Oh, I'm sorry, President Banks, can I make one more comment on that?
Absolutely.
Just a reminder that this type of development is exactly what, as a matter of policy, the city council wants to have happen in our town center area to whatever extent developers think they can make it work. Like this is the kind of, hopefully a catalyst to get more development investment in our town center area. This is the kind of the first project with this new vision of the area gradually evolving to a more economically dense form.
Did you find your question?
No, I'd just like to make a quick comment.
Go
Hopefully
ahead.
it'll be quick.
Yep.
You know, we've talked about, you guys know my opinions on TIF, and I'm not gonna go through it and reiterate them. I just, I want to, actually, there's really nothing new. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not going to support it again. And, you know, I understand the conflict in my philosophy, and it is a conflict in my philosophy. How do you get new development? And part of the reason that was stated in this memo was that this project can't move forward without TIF. When I look at this project specifically, it is coming in a space where we have affordable housing in our community. The gap housing we experience in Crystal, it's been shown time and time again, is market rate housing. That's our gap. Medina is completely the opposite. They can use this money all they want, and it fills a gap that they have in their community. We don't have that tool for our community. And this is to further affordable housing in a community that doesn't have that gap. And from a philosophical perspective, I believe that we are exacerbating the issue by supporting affordable housing and making it impossible for a private person to accomplish any development without having some type of government assistance. And I think it's gross that in order for this organization to get TIF, they have to get other assistance from the government, and it's hinged upon each other. I don't think it's how we should operate, and I will be voting no for those reasons. So, thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Do I have a motion? Go ahead.
Make a motion approving a modification to the redevelopment plan for redevelopment project number 1 and tax increment financing plan for establishment of tax increment financing district number 5, a housing district located at 5240 West Broadway.
All right. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
All right, roll call.
Commissioner Parsons? Commissioner Adams?
Nay.
Commissioner Banks?
Aye.
Commissioner Budiszewski?
Aye.
Commissioner Cummings?
Aye.
Commissioner Kaiser?
Aye.
Commissioner LaRoche?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-2.
All right. Moving right along.
Thank you again, Mr. President. This is a very much more straightforward item. If you recall from that massive table I had on the screen for about 2 seconds, we don't actually start receiving increment until 2025 from this district, but we will start having the regular administrative costs beginning in 2023, basically. Now, these are not the developer's costs. In fact, the developer has paid not only a non-refundable fee, but also a $10,000 escrow to cover the cost for Ellers to review their development pro forma and prepare all the development agreement and so forth. But just the regular ongoing TIF district administrative costs that the city will have, we'll begin to incur those next year, but we won't have any increment to pay those costs. Remember that up to 10% admin thing we talked about? That won't start showing up until 2025. So, in order to bridge that, we need you to authorize an interfund loan from the EDA fund to cover those costs, and then the EDA fund would be repaid by the TIF fund once those revenues start to arrive with 4% annual interest. So the request before you tonight is to adopt the resolution approving that interfund loan for administrative costs related to the new district.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, do I have a motion? There, John.
Make a motion approving an interfund loan for tax increment financing district number 5, a housing district located at 5240 West Broadway.
All right. Have a second?
I will second
All
that.
right. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the ayes have it. All right. Number 6, property status update.
Thank you. A few things. I wanted to thank the mayor for the proclamation in the council meeting about Small Business Saturday and Love Local. I just wanted to let you all know that we are going to try something different this year. The last 2 years, we've done different flavors of that. The first one involved some county-funded advertising that didn't seem to really move the needle. And then last year, we tried a hashtag that didn't kind of take off, which is the whole point of a hashtag, but it was only Crystal. So we're going to do some promotional things using low-cost options like social media, and the county is setting up their own hashtag. And hopefully, with that countywide hashtag for small businesses, it will make people outside of Crystal aware of the many small locally owned businesses that we have right here in Crystal. So that's the first thing. The other thing I wanted to mention is that a new restaurant will be opening soon in the former Vientiane restaurant space at 56th Avenue, Bass Lake Road, just on the south side of the airport. That's the building that had the fire. They put the sprinkler system in. It's been completely renovated. Lucky Pearl has all their approvals. They just are, it takes a lot of work to get a restaurant up and running, and they're still working on that. So as soon as we know they've opened, we'll let you know. Hopefully, they will take us up on our offer to do a ribbon cutting. Purple Rose is continuing to remodel the inside of the former Pizza Ranch for their restaurant and bar. We have reached out to some like drive-up coffee type businesses about the former Dairy Queen on Bass Lake Road. No responses yet, and we haven't seen a marketing package yet from the mall owner, but we are going to continue to try to get word out about that. The former Burger King that is being renovated for Hyder Investments corporate office, that renovation is underway. And Wine Thief and Ale Jail is continuing to work on their plans for the former Pizza Hut at 36th and Douglas. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Couple questions. Probably our two most visible empty storefronts are like next to the Chipotle and next to Aldi. I heard there's like, or I think maybe we saw there's like a shoe company going into the old spot, and then I heard there's like a bank maybe going in at the old Broadway. Can you like confirm or?
So the old Broadway, we have not heard anything about that. Last we heard from the mall owners, they want to find a restaurant user because that space is laid out specifically for that kind of user, and they're willing to be patient, but maybe their patience has run out. But we have not had any inquiries about that space from either the mall owner or potential tenants. But as far as the former half-price book space, just east of the Chipotle, yes, Snipes is the name of the company that has inquired about that space. I don't know where they're at in terms of drawing up their building plans. But they are, I mean, they seem pretty serious. So once the building permit application comes in, then we know it's real. But at this point, it's just, it seems like a pretty serious inquiry. So that's where we believe they're going to be locating. And then Metro Women's Center is renovating the kind of the separate office building where Geneva Furniture was at the northwest corner of that site. They're going to relocate from the Robbinsdale location. It'll be a much larger facility combining clinical space, education space, and offices. So that work should be underway soon as well. So you'll be seeing activity on that northeast corner of Bass Lake Road and Broadway over the next several months.
And I also see work being done at night on the old, what was that liquor, or not, the bar that was on? Rostimos, thank you, yes, yeah. So it seems like they're working on that thing around the clock.
Yeah, we did do a little pop song reference in the city newsletter. I don't know if you saw that about our two new medical clinics, but yeah, Odom Medical Clinic, I think they're moving right along. I think they may actually open before Crystal Vision Clinic does, but both of them are expecting to open in the first part of 2023. And those are both on Botano Boulevard, north of Bass Lake Road.
Very nice.
I have a follow-up thing from, recall when we met with Commissioner Lundy, the mayor, myself, and you, we were the guy, Nokomis?
Sorry.
Was there any follow-up conversation with him, or was that the end of it? Was there, anything else? And what I'm thinking about is just kind of going as we're, thinking ahead and with all the development or redevelopment, if you will, in that area, thinking about what opportunities still exist.
Yes, sir, we did follow up right away with him and sent him some different development scenarios that we'd kind of kicked around at a staff level about what could potentially happen with his block of buildings. And encouraged him to, because he mentioned he had a contractor or builder that he worked with or that he knew, encouraged him to have the builder look at that, and we could meet with them whenever he wanted. Didn't hear back. I did actually follow up with him again about a month ago and didn't hear back. So
Okay.
we certainly did follow up. We'll continue to do that. I think everyone's busy, so it may be that the builder or developer he knew maybe just didn't have time to look at a new project. But whenever he's ready, we're willing to have that conversation. And certainly that type of redevelopment would be consistent with our vision for that part of the city.
Is there any other vacant businesses, really? I know, and at least in that area, there's that auto shop. It used to be that one's been vacant for a while, but I can't really think of any.
Little tire place?
Yeah, I can't really think of anything else, honestly, in other than that office building that's actually right next to it, that's now, it's kind of an eyesore, but.
Yes, sir, that's a good point. And 5500 Broadway, that's the former Big O Tire space. We do know there's a developer that property is for sale, and we do know at least one developer is looking at doing some type of redevelopment on that corner. That could be really transformative for the city, that corner that basically spans the space between Becker Park and Target. But, these conversations, of course, happen without the city at the table, as they should, because they're private conversations. But we know that there is at least one developer that's looking at that corner and doing something significant there. And as soon as we know more about the status of that, we'll let you know.
Thank you. Anything else? All right. Any other business, John?
No, sir.
All right, well, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh, I raised my hand first, second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 8:16.
Recording